What are you telling yourself in moments of silence? I just walked in the silence for almost 3 years, knowing what God has already showed me and expecting Him to affirm it again and again, each time asking, "Are you sure this is right?" Silence. So I started sharing that vision with those closest to me to hear an audible affirmation. I told friends, family, and those I considered brothers, thinking they'd be supportive and as excited as I was. I know now, in their own way, they were just trying to help me, but I didn't want help. I was looking for support. Instead, I received criticism, judgment, and handpicked scriptures to support their opinions based on their beliefs on how I had to be wrong with what I knew I had heard from God. What God is teaching me is He gave me that vision, not them. Ultimately, it's what led me to one of the most unexpected and truly grateful blessings I needed that I never even asked for. Getting kicked out of my father's house, where I had been living for around 3 years in this waiting period that led me to having true understanding and compassion for people who slide into depression. Because I slid into depression and I hid it really well. I say slide because you don't just wake up one day depressed. It's literally day after day the way you feel and think about yourself and how your life feels just a little more negative than the day before. Which means yesterday's thoughts and feelings are still there, and now you're adding today's on top. It's like building a wall made of Legos. One piece won't keep you from leaving your house, getting out of bed in the morning, or shutting yourself off from the world in complete isolation. Then, feeling sorry for yourself and wondering why nobody's noticed or even reached out and cares. Then judging them for what really you've created. But day after day, another piece is added and added and added. Eventually, you've built yourself a wall forged of lies from the enemy. Lies about how you feel and think about yourself, your circumstances, others, and that you're all alone with no way out. Had I not had God in my life, no matter how jacked up I thought my relationship with Jesus was, to have Him to cry, bawl, ugly cry to at night after night, I can see why suicide becomes an option for some. There were times I begged God to be finished with me so I could come home. But He never did, and I'm so thankful He made me too stubborn to ever quit. Praise God, He never left or gave up on me, even during times I ran from Him. Listening to this little clip from Stephen Furtick called "What Are You Telling Yourself in Moments of Silence" helped affirm how God's grace through the waiting is truly sufficient, and how the shifting of perspectives can begin to change everything. Through this waiting I went through, there's a testimony that when God says the time is right, He will give me the words to share. But what I can share now is why I say perspective is so crucial. I had to allow people into that secret life, that dark place hidden from the world as I walked around wearing masks. Each one trying to be whoever I thought I needed to be to fit in, to feel accepted, wanted, respected, loved. All while portraying false confidence and expressing, "I'm fine, how can I help you?" Now, I didn't know this at the time, but the shift started one morning when I woke up, and it was as if God smacked me right in the face and said, "You selfish hypocrite. You try to be a blessing to everyone around you, but when you won't allow me to work through them to be a blessing for you when you need help, you're really only helping others to make yourself feel good." I now just realize a lesson taught by my father's actions passed on to me, generational curses. In May, when I left my dad's with a few bags and no idea where I was going, I felt different than ever before. I was actually grateful. It got me off my butt, out of my room, and into motion that led me to where I'm at now. I started praising God for what He's doing behind the scenes and what He's bringing to me that I have not yet received, instead of blaming God and begging God for things I've asked for over and over and not receiving. That's what I believe this message from Stephen is asking. What will you do? What will we do in the silence? beg and blame, or praise and prepare to receive. Now, what I need you to know is there were many days I fell short and felt I failed yet again. Some days were great, and the next would make me wonder, why am I even trying? Those things will happen, and it's going to take work every single day, and it'll be hard and still is today. Just not as hard, but just as much work. The Bible never says it'll be easy, but it is simple. So I started praising and preparing, and in doing so, God used so many people to bless me in ways unimaginable. Perfectly timed, last-minute, God-sized blessings. I want to say thank you to those who allowed God to use you to be a blessing to me in so many ways. Those who gave me a couch to crash on and meals to eat so I wouldn't have to spend another night sleeping in my car hungry. Those who gave me a meal to eat while letting me use your washer and dryer. Those who gave me so generously financially to help make the gap a little less stressful. To a family whose donations saved me in ways I'll share in my testimony. To a helping hand from someone that helped qualify me for a grant that allowed me to stay for 3 weeks at the Courtyard Marriott, where meals could be charged to the room and covered by the grant. And to the person who didn't even know it the day that they offered an apartment for me to stay at for 2 weeks rent-free. In exchange, I just had to clean it. Was the last day I could stay at the hotel, and literally told God that morning, okay, where to next, because I'll go where you tell me to. To wrap this up, God came through just as he always does, once I allowed him to. My reevaluation from the VA is finally completed. The 2-week free stay is now a lease on a perfectly little 1-bedroom apartment that I just signed for in New Haven that's perfect for me and Gabriel. I was able to trade in that vehicle I still had around $7,000 in repairs for an SUV that I'd never imagined being able to have when this all started. And I'm now taking steps with the VA about attending college to continue this journey that came from one little vision from God over 3 years ago. Praise is the ultimate weapon against the enemy, and God's purpose will be fulfilled. We just have free will to be on the blessing receiving side of it through our obedience or not. What I've learned through this, to me, is more important than any self-help book, podcast, or sermon has ever taught me, and that's this. When faced with the next, and you can fill in the blank, who are you going to listen to? The discernment from your daddy in heaven, or the dysfunction from the devil in hell? Because whatever you decide to do, you will pick one. And whichever one you pick is the true definition of you're only one thought away from a completely different life.